Smashville Draft Night 2021 continues, presented by Lee Company. You see the board in front of you. Fyodor Svechkov, number 19 overall, picked by the Nashville Predators. A second straight year, the Predators go to Russia for their pick. And as we promised you earlier, Justin Bradford joins us here on the panel. He is with Penalty Box Radio, and for years, Justin has been covering the draft, always tracks the younger players coming up through the system. So, Justin, you have been watching these drafts for a long time. First of all, it's great to have you with us. This is a little different than when we were in Chicago 4 years ago, but you've been to a number of different buildings where the draft is live. This is a little different, but it's still pretty special.
It is a little different. It is quiet in here right now. Used to having a crowd reaction to a pick, whether it's booing or cheering or whatnot, or for trades happening, seeing that go down as well. So it's a very unique opportunity to have this draft. I can't wait to be back in person, though. I miss that in-person experience because in Vancouver, it was awesome to be in Vancouver, and Chicago, Dallas, Buffalo, been to all those places to have that fan reaction and to have that experience. I'm looking forward to Montreal next year.
All right, so you've been watching Fyodor Svechkov. What do we know about him?
Well, he is one of those guys. Elite Prospects has a great scouting report on him, and he's one of those guys that one of the best defensive forwards in the entire draft, right behind Matthew Bernier, who was taken right in the top. So what I love about him, though, he's one of those guys that's going to be relied upon in situations where you need a guy to win a faceoff, a guy to go to those quote-unquote dirty areas, a guy that is going to use his body in battle as well. He's one of those guys that's going to be a great product for the Nashville Predators when you need someone in a situation that you need to rely upon a center to win that faceoff, or in the penalty kill as well, to sacrifice his body to go to that net. They need those types of guys. That he can provide some offense as well, but you need a reliable, high hockey IQ guy, and Svechkov has that.
Tell me this, because as we talked this morning when you were on our radio show, and you've been well aware of this, the evaluation from different people was unique this year because of the varying different leagues and how many people played a lot of games, not very many games. Where was he on a lot of people's boards? Did he fall a little bit?
He was in some very interesting places. I mean, ISS Hockey had him as high as 10, and then you look at some other places, and Elite Prospects had him at number 13, so means he fell a little bit. Future Considerations had him at 18, so very, very accurate right there. And a few had him, McKean's had him at 30. So I think it was a good area for him to go, but it shows, too, that he was going in a place where he was probably expected to go.
So nobody was saying, oh, my gosh, how is this guy picked in the first round?
Yeah, no surprises like we saw with the Boucher pick. That Boucher pick, he wasn't anywhere near the top 32 on any rankings as well. So, but we're going to see more of that. The evaluation process has been very unique and interesting this season, as everybody knows. Not many people play. That's why we haven't seen many kids from the O go. Hardly any OHLers have gone. They didn't play all season. The only way you're able to evaluate them was from World Juniors, and that's pretty much it. So it's very curious to see how this draft is playing out, but it's also an opportunity, too, for teams to find some diamonds in the rough and get their player without having to worry about other teams snapping them up.
So this is a player, obviously, and you did get to have some personal experience. You're sitting in the weeds in the dark right over there behind the lights. It's a little brighter over here. But you have a player like this. We were talking in the break. You thought D-men or centermen, and you've seen a lot of D-men and centermen off the board in the first round, and this is, an area of concern for the Predators. So you look at Svechkov, and we expect him to play in the KHL. Is that kind of the path you're going to see for a young player drafted at this point?
Yeah, definitely in the K. He's been playing in the different Russia leagues, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce names of those lower leagues. It's a little more difficult than saying continental comparatively, but I expect that there too. But it's also good because now the Predators have a few Russians in their system, which makes it a little more comfortable. We've seen that with Finnish players. We've seen that with the Swedes as well. Some of them have gone on, and Big Finn has gone on as well. But having some comfort level, especially with Russians, when you look at it, it's good to have that Igor Afanasyev in there, Yakov Trenin, because when he comes to a camp, he's going to be familiar as well and have some familiarity. And there's definitely different in terms of culture as well. And so having Afanasyev, who's been playing in the O, playing junior, and now playing over in Russia as well, having that familiarity is going to be really good for him, for Svechkov, in terms of his development too.
I would have to think, guys, just off the top of my head, this is probably the most Russians that the Predators have had in the system at one time that I can remember in terms of big first-round picks. Remember, it seemed like they sort of – remember there was the whole – when the KHL started, the whole rattle-off thing. That might have had people shying away for a little bit. But now these last couple of years, got some of the prime prospects in the system are Russian.
And you're seeing as well that they're not afraid to draft those guys like an Askarov, like now with Svechkov, that they're willing to go out there. And I think scouting's gotten a lot better and feel more confident, too, that players do want to come across the pond and play in the NHL. They want to go and play for that Stanley Cup too. And there was that time where you weren't sure what was going to happen in honoring of contracts, with, like you said, the rattle-off situation too. Now you're seeing players want to be able to come over, and it's still a risk. Any player, it's a risk. It's a crapshoot. It's a lottery. You never know what's going to happen with these players, but obviously the evaluation process has helped a lot with Russia and seeing what these players are made of as well, and they want to come and make their money and play for the Stanley Cup.
All right. Justin, stick around. We want more coverage from you. But we didn't get a chance. We were watching the monitor live when David Poile announced the pick. Let's actually bring you footage of him in front of the Nashville Predators fans announcing the number 19 overall pick in this year's draft.
Thank you, Gary. Welcome to Smashville, and thank you for all the fans for coming out here as usual to be a great loyal following. The Nashville Predators are drafting from Toyota in the MHL in Russia. The Predators are proud to select Fyodor Svechkov.
So Fyodor Svechkov, and like you said, Mace, we have to make sure that we don't throw the extra syllable in there.
Boy.
We have seen there's a couple of Svechnikovs out there, but this is Svechkov. Now, as we practice up here, let's send it down to Pete Weber, who is standing by with David Poile.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. So, David, you had to wait a long time before being able to exercise your pick here this evening. And on many lists, and this happens all the time, but they say guys fall, they rise. So this is one that fell to you, it seems.
Well, we think so. This was a player that we had rated a bit higher than we got on the 18th pick. I remember this was a tough year from a scouting standpoint with Jeff Kelty and Tommy Nolan when they went down to Dallas, which was a tournament that when COVID finally kind of opened things up a little bit, they saw Russia play and they saw this young kid, and Jeff and Tommy liked him from that instant. And I can tell you that has been almost the main focus on who we had hoped to get. So once in a while you're good, and sometimes you're lucky. And I think tonight was a reflection of a little bit of both. He's a really good size center iceman. Does a lot. I mean, you like to, when you talk about players, he does this or he does this, but I think this player could turn out to be really a complete center iceman, and again fits in right with a little bit with our, I'd say, our change that we're making with our lineup and projecting him with some of these young players that we've now acquired, and like Askarov last year, right. and now with Fedor. I think this is a real good move for our organization.
What do you expect, him to go KHL again for 1 year or so?
I would think so. I mean, these kids all need time. I mean, they're just turned 18 years old, and if they play over there a couple of years and then come here, and then it's always a progression. The road to Nashville is through Milwaukee. Hopefully, maybe one of these days you get a little bit luckier where a guy could come right onto your team. But all in all, I think that would be the plan right now.
Comparable for him, and I've heard people today take on his namesake, Svechnikov.
Well, that would be a real good one.
Yes.
There's different guys. I think sometimes we tend to get carried away on certain ones. We've talked about Joel Eriksson, who plays for Minnesota as a young player that's gotten better and better, and plays that complete game. Type of guy that you could see winning with, which I think is the most important part.
All right, David, step number 1, draft pick number 1 taken care of, and now further meetings before tomorrow's selections?
Yeah, well, you have to get when all 32 picks get taken in the first round, then we'll have a meeting afterwards for an hour or so to see what we have. We'll redo our lists, if you will, and get prepared for tomorrow morning. And we got kind of a couple extra picks, and let's see if we can make some hay tomorrow.
David, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
David Poile, Predators general manager, having made that pick tonight of Fyodor Svechkov, not Svechnikov. Tom Nolan is standing by here, having been involved in all of these meetings, and he will come in and join us now as well. David mentioned going to that tournament in Dallas,
yes.
And the young man really caught your eye there.
He did. He caught our eye the first game. We knew about him coming in. We didn't know. All we could really see him was on video, and he really, from the first game, he just, we were like, wow, he's a big kid, stays over pucks. It's almost like Velcro on his stick. He never loses the puck.
Now, kids at this age, this year's draftees, they were robbed of some development time this last year.
Yeah, it was really tough. I feel bad for a lot of the kids. Kids in the OHL, most of the kids, they didn't even play. And then a lot of the other kids just had abbreviated seasons. Some were, stopped mid-season, stuff like that. So I feel bad for the kids, but we did our best.
Yes.
Yes.
Did your best, and now so it makes more sense for him to stay at least a year in the KHL.
Yeah, we never rush anybody. So we'll talk with our development guys, have them go over there and kind of work with them, and then we'll have a plan for them as we always do. So
you're going to have to get back to maybe traveling more than you had to do, or were able to even do this last year.
Definitely. Looking forward to it. The one good thing was the USHL was played the whole season, so we at least got out, 4 or 5 days a week, so it was good. But I'm looking forward to a regular season.
Tom Nolan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Tom Nolan talking about what goes on in the drafting world, the scouting world, needing to get out and actually see the guys in person, your own eyes. And Willie, maybe in that regard, it's not so much a Moneyball approach, but it is the old eye test.
Yes, and as we know, Pete, you got to blend the two, right? The eye test with the analytics is the magic formula. And great work by Pete Weber tonight, catching up with David Poile just minutes after he made the first pick. And Justin Bradford continues with us here from Penalty Box Radio. Justin, it's so interesting to hear David Poile and Tom Nolan, the chief amateur scout, their eyes, talking about the eye test, it lined up exactly with what you were talking about with your consensus scouting report on Mr. Svechkov, complete centerman, right? Does everything. Not just a flashy scorer, but they like his all-around game.
Absolutely. And Scott Wheeler from The Athletic, one of his reports is saying he's one of the most complete players in the draft. Excellent defensive forward who has a knack for disrupting, lifting pucks, plenty capable of carrying the puck and making plays in the offensive zone. That's what you want, is complete. And plus that hockey IQ, you can't really teach that to a teenager, and being 17 years old, going on 18, and to be called a complete hockey player, that's something you want. You look at the Predators system now at centers. Now you have Svechkov, Tomasino getting ready for it, Glass. The center area is actually looking pretty good for the Predators. Now you think about it, they're in the need of defensemen in this system now, which is kind of crazy to think for the Nashville Predators, but center's looking really good for the Nashville Predators right now.
And they have, Mace, 2 second-round picks. And you heard David Poile.
Let's make some noise.
He said,
make some hay. Is that what he said? Okay.
Make some hay.
Yeah.
And, this was interesting, too. Like, we've been here for a while, right? We were preparing for this. We've been on the air since 7 o'clock. David Poile still, and his group, they're watching every single pick from here until the draft stops at the end of the first round. He said then they will have another meeting to sort of reassess the board, figure out what the strategy is for tomorrow when round 2 starts.
Yeah, it's never ending. They love their meetings. You got to do that because, as Justin pointed out, you have guys come off the board like Boucher that they might have been planning on there for the second round. So there's a lot of those picks that you have to consider. Another point that we got to think about too, and Justin, is when you're tracking a player like Svechkov, when you have that complete player, they're able to adjust to the NHL a little more instead of a guy that's, high-end offensive skill that really lacks in the defensive game. Unless he's going to instant 30, 40 goal stender, it's going to be tough to get him in the lineup, but it's going to be easy to scout him because we found something during the break that he's got a familiar teammate.
Absolutely. Prime goaltending prospect, Yaroslav Askarov, they're going to be teammates in the KHL. So it's going to be great to see them and have, familiarity with other prospects. He's going to be playing against other prospects as well in the system that are playing in the KHL as well with Semyon Shestakov, and also Vladislav Yeremenko. So there's more KHL prospects out there. There's more Russian prospects in the system for the Nashville Predators that, hey, scouts out there making trips in Russia, they'll be able to see a bunch of different players in the system already. But having a teammate that's part of the same system, it's really good to see that as well because it helps with that familiarity when you're having to cross the seas and come to a development camp or come to camp or have those calls as well. Just that familiarity means a lot.
Yeah, that's huge.
So Svechkov and Askarov are on the same team. I was wondering that when I read St. Petersburg, my wheels were turning. We certainly remember watching Eli Tolvanen and what he was doing in the KHL. Mm-hmm. You saw these highlights, but now think about Predator fans. They might be ordering some St. Petersburg jerseys, or watching some of these games on the computer late at night or early in the morning when some of these games are, because you got 2 of the best prospects, top prospects in the system on the same team.
Absolutely, and that's what you want.
Exciting.
It's very exciting to see that too. And we saw plenty of fans, obviously, in Jokerit of Ellie Tolvanen with those Jokerit jerseys, which are classic. Those are fantastic jerseys to have there too. But now it's really cool to see too, because a lot of KHL teams have fantastic social media accounts that are targeting English speakers, and we're seeing that now. I've seen some folks out there on Twitter. Shout out to Kyle Perkins, who is wanting to learn Russian. He's actually taking Russian courses to learn, so he can communicate with that, and he's communicating with some of these KHL accounts. So it's helping bridge that gap of growing the game as well, to where you don't have to have these walls set up between leagues and everything. It's growing the game, and it's making people more interested in the game as well.
There was a great moment, Mace, I don't know if you were listening. I was just driving home from, I can't remember exactly which game it was, but Hal was on with Darren McFarland, and we were carrying the press conference on 102.5 The Game, and there was a Russian reporter that asked permission in the Zoom, and I think you were on.
I was on it too. Yep.
So he said,
Skillsy translated it.
Can I ask? Can I ask Yakov a question in Russian? And they said, sure, yeah. So they had a full interview back and forth in the Russian, and so Hal, after we threw it back to Hal, it was so funny after. So did you get any of that? Like we didn't know what they said, but it sounded like a great interview.
Sounded like a good interview.
It sounds like this guy's going to be watching a lot of Predators games in a few years.
There you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely will be.
So, Justin, thanks a lot for coming on with us. Thanks for your insight as always, and you got a whole another day of this tomorrow.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Justin Bradford, Penalty Box Radio. Check his stuff out and listen to his show on 102.5 The Game on Wednesday night. It's been outstanding. When we come back, we're hoping to hear from Fyodor Svechkov, the first-round pick of the Nashville Predators, 19th overall this year. He'll be headed to St. Petersburg at the KHL to play with Yaroslav Askarov, last year's first-round pick. Stay tuned. We've got more coming.